Today we're going to look at the distributive property. It's one of those things that we use in algebra over and over and over and over again, so you got to get really good at it. It's actually a lot easier than most people make it out to be. When we have the distributive property, it's going to look something like this. It's a number on the outside with some kind of an expression. And sometimes it could be 2 numbers in here, sometimes there could be 3, there could be more letters. You're going to meet this all the way through algebra. And the thing that we have to remember about it is it's just telling us to take this number that's on the outside of the parentheses. And sometimes you'll see it over here, but a number on the outside, which whatever sign is with it, and give it out to everything that's inside the parentheses. The biggest mistake students make is they forget to give it to somebody. And you know how you feel when your friend gets something and you don't? Well, the numbers get really upset. So we're going to take this 2 and we're going to pass it out to the x, and we're also going to pass it out to the 7. And now we just do the math. 2 times x, no, we can't do anything more than just write it as 2x. 2 times 7 is 14. And for this part, we're working with an expression, not an equation. We're done. That would be the answer that we'd be looking for. We're taking something that was simplified, which when you're in algebra, you'll be doing a lot of that, and making it into the bigger version that it used to be. This is factored out. This is before you factor it. Let's look at a couple more. So I have a -4 times -2 plus 5. Now we're going to go ahead and we got to remember our negative signs, those pesky negatives. I know they get in your way and that you just don't want to deal with them, but we got to remember that we take the whole thing. The sign goes with it. So I have a -4 times my first one, which is a -2. And then we're going to do the same thing. We got our plus 5 here. This is our second term, and we're going to give the -4 to it as well. Now we just do our math. -4 times -2 is going to give me a +8, and you've got calculators, use them. +5 times -4 is going to give me a -20. So in this case, since they're both numbers, we can go ahead and combine them. And when I take 8 minus 20, I'm going to end up with a -12 as my final answer for this one. So when we have everything the same, we can get it down to an answer. But for most of what you guys are going to be doing, this is what you're going to be ending up with. There's a couple that are kind of tricky. Let's do one that's not as tricky, and then we're going to do a tricky one, and we'll be all done with this quick little video. So if I have a -2, sorry, and I'm going to do 10 minus x, or let's do -2x. Let's squish a little 2 in there. We're going to do what we did before. We're going to take that, remembering to keep that sign with it, and we're going to do a -2 times 10. And we're going to do a -2x times -2. Now, this one I want you to be really, really careful with. Remember how that subtraction and that negative sign. So we're going to look at that as a whole. First, we're going to do our -2 times 10. We'll get a -20. Remember that sometimes it's subtraction, sometimes a negative. When we're multiplying like this, it becomes a negative. So we have a -2x times a -2 is going to give us a +4x. Now we can combine them when we're multiplying, but when we're adding and subtracting, we can't put things that are different together. Only when we multiply can we do that. So if I'm multiplying, I can combine things that aren't the same. We're going to be talking about combining like terms in a minute. Only multiply, combine things that are different. And we're going to be doing that a lot in algebra next year. So let's do one more that's a little bit tricky. You're going to see this on at least one of the sheets I'm giving you today. So we have x plus 10. Well, what do we do this with just a negative sign on the outside? We know that mathematicians are a little bit lazy, and when there's ones, we don't like to write them all over the place. So really, this is saying -1 times x plus 10. So now we know what to do with it, right? We're going to take that, we're going to pass it out to everything. So I have a -1 times x is going to give me a -1x. -1, okay, this is plus, -1 times 10. So now I have a -1x is equal to minus 10. Woo, Miss O'Neill's messing up on this one. negative 1x minus 10, or the other way you might see it written, and on a lot of our tests and quizzes this is the way it would be, negative x minus 10. They're both right, but this is the one you're going to see most often. Remember, you can always replay the videos and slow it down and speed it up based on what you need.